Good evening, everybody, and welcome. Good evening. Thank you for joining us this evening, where we're going to be visiting the Peach State in Georgia, USA. So make yourself comfortable, and hope you've got a kind of drink to hand. You're sitting somewhere comfy. And do say hello to us in the chat box as you join us. It's always great to see who's joining us and where you are. So welcome, and this should be a really interesting evening because we're going to, as I say, Georgia, USA, and in particular to discover its unspoilt coastline. And in fact, if you have been to Georgia, then do let us know. And if you've been to the coastline, of course, do let us know. Be great to know if anybody's been there because you're such a well-travelled lot. But whether you've been there or not, I think this is going to be fascinating. So hello to Adam and Linda and Roy, Christian joining us from Denmark. Welcome. And Nicola in Milton Keynes, Alison from Boston in the USA, and Colin in Bournemouth. Welcome. Elizabeth in Aberdeenshire, Stella from Dorset, Mary in Hythe, Frank in Windsor. I'm in Windsor as well, Frank. Welcome to Alison in Savannah, Georgia. Oh gosh, I hope the panel really know their stuff tonight. Welcome to Graham, who says thanks again from the happy place, wherever they. Oh gosh, I don't know where that is. So hello to David from Croydon, Amanda from Georgia, and Shirley from Portishead, Rosalind in Margate, and Bob Miller in Boston. So brilliant. So we've got a few people joining us from over the pond tonight. Tessa in Dorset, Beth from Sissinghurst, and Shirley in Portishead. Welcome, everybody. And yeah, make yourselves comfy. We'll be starting in a couple of minutes. Hello to Pamela in darkest Kent and Tatum in Chesham. So yeah, make yourself comfy. To Joanne in Vancouver, and yeah, sit yourself down somewhere comfy with a glass of something nice because we are going to be transported to Georgia, USA, to the Peach State. So really looking forward to this. So hi to Anne in Trowbridge. So yes, as Wanderlust readers, I know that you, like us, will like taking the road less travelled. Of course, we all like to explore lesser-known destinations, the hidden corners. And so this evening, yeah, we're heading to the USA, but to visit the Peach State, perhaps not so well known to some of us. And we'll be embarking on a virtual journey along the beautiful Georgia coastline and covering this lesser-known region of the American South. So I think this is going to be absolutely fascinating. Really looking forward to this. So let me introduce our speakers tonight. And what a great bunch we have. So welcome first to Mark Jaronsky, who's the Deputy Commissioner of Explore Georgia, the Tourism Division of the Georgia Department of Economic Development. So Mark actually hails from Florida, but he's chosen to make Georgia his home for the last 5 years, and he's passionate about spreading the word about his adopted state. So, yeah, look forward to hearing all about Mark and what has really grabbed you. We're also being joined by Stacia Hendricks. Welcome. And Stacia says she's been privileged to call the Georgia coast her home since 1984. After serving as the naturalist manager with the lodge on Little St. Simon's until 2020, she now serves as the director of special projects. And Stacia also serves on the Coastal Advisory Council of the Georgia Department of Natural Resources. And then we've got Aaron Miller, an award-winning British travel writer who I think all of you will know his work in Wanderlust because he's a regular contributor. And in fact, at the moment, does the Hidden USA feature every issue. So Aaron's passionate about discovering the stories of locals he meets on his travels. He specializes in authentic, sustainable, active and nature-based travel. And he's recently visited the Georgia coastline. And so we'll share his impressions with us this evening. Great stuff. We've also been joined by Kath Poozy, from the America As You Like It, the UK specialist tour operator, where Kath has worked for 20 years. And Kath's travelled throughout the US, both for business and pleasure, first visiting Georgia while on an Amtrak journey back in 1993, the year that Wanderlust was formed. So, yes, 28 years ago. And so Kath has travelled back to Georgia many times since and absolutely loves talking about the state. So Kath will be able to help you this evening with any questions you have about practicalities of visiting. And she'll be in the chat box throughout the evening. And we'll also, of course, be joining the Q&A. So if you do have any questions at all about getting to Georgia, how best to do it, then do feel free as well to put them in the chat box. And of course, that goes for throughout the evening. As ever, we are recording this evening and we will be sharing it afterwards, a link to it. So if you do unfortunately have to leave before the end, or if you want to replay a bit to catch anything, then rest assured, yes, we will be sending that out, along with some of your questions and answers and some of the recommendations from our great panel tonight. But anyway, I think, first of all, let's get ourselves in the mood by seeing a little video about Georgia. Right, we seem to have a problem with the video coming up. So, oh, here we go. Okay, we got a real taster there, didn't we? Now, we have our first speaker. We're just going to do a very quick poll of you to answer, which is just about what would motivate you to visit Georgia's coast? What would you be looking for? So if we can just bring the poll up. Right, and you can hopefully see that if you click on the poll button, those of you by the chat box. So what would motivate you to visit Georgia's coast? Would it be the history, arts and culture, the nature and wildlife, or the southern hospitality, coastal cuisine, which of course it's very famous for as well? But I'm sure which we're going to learn much more about this evening. So at the moment, it's nature and wildlife probably in the lead, and which we do know is a firm favourite with Wanderlust readers, but also history, arts and culture, and of course, southern hospitality. So thank you so much for that. Okay, well, let's move on to the first speaker. So I'm going to welcome back Mark. And thank you for joining us, Mark. And I know you're going to give us a bit of an overview, put all of this into context, tell us all about your adopted state. So I'll leave you to it.
Well, hello, Lynn, and hello, everyone. Thank you for gathering today to learn a little bit more about Georgia. We're excited to share it with you. Georgia is. You should be confident in traveling to Georgia. We look forward to welcoming you soon. I'm sure after you hear the other guests on this webinar, you'll be ready to come see it for yourself the first time or come back. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of the state before we dive straight into the coast and you learn a lot more about all that the coast has to offer. You can think about the state of Georgia in 5 parts. There's North Georgia, which is mountainous. It's the start of the Appalachian Mountains and the Blue Ridge Mountains. There's Atlanta, which many people have heard about, and I'll talk about in a minute. There's Central Georgia, there's South Georgia, and the coastal Georgia area. So we're bordered to the south by Florida, to the north by Tennessee and North Carolina, east South Carolina, west Alabama. Let me say a little bit more about North Georgia. I mentioned the Appalachian Mountains. You may have heard of the Appalachian Trail. It starts in North Georgia and extends 2,000 miles up to the U.S. state of Maine. Atlanta is a great place to kind of start when you think about traveling to Georgia. Atlanta Airport, one of the world's busiest airports, served by Delta. Delta Airlines here in the U.S. Calls their global headquarters home here in Atlanta and at Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson Airport. They work with many partners around the world, and there's a lot of flight lift, a lot of a lot of flights into Atlanta. And obviously, all of those flights provide much flexibility and availability and choice for the traveler. So we're very lucky to have Atlanta be sort of the gateway to the entire southeast of the United States right here in Georgia. And for those who fly into to Georgia and to Atlanta before they explore the rest of Georgia, they have plenty of great nightlife and history and culture right there in Atlanta. In fact, the only national park in the entire U.S. national park system that follows a figure like Martin Luther King Jr. from birthplace to resting place is right here in Atlanta. That's where I come to you from here in my office in Atlanta right now. I'll kind of scoot down to the coast for a minute and talk about SAVANNAH. SAVANNAH was established back in 1733 by General Oglethorpe. He named the 13th and final U.S. colony after King George II. And that was Georgia's first city. And today it offers all of the history that SAVANNAH has been known for, as well as a lot of modern amenities, like you see a luxury resort that just opened in the last year right on the riverfront in SAVANNAH. But before I pass on to the other guests who are going to tell you a lot more about the coast in depth, let me tell you a little bit about my favorite parts of the coast. And if I had to choose a day to spend on the Georgia coast, I would wake up at the beautiful Cloister Hotel. The Cloister Hotel is the only resort in the world, the entire world, it's right here in Georgia, to have received 4 Forbes 5-star awards and for 13 consecutive years, and to have hosted a G8 Summit of Leaders. It's a fabulous resort right there on the Georgia coast with a great golf resort. And when I have a few minutes to myself, or hours to myself, I guess, if you're familiar with the game of golf. But if you have a golfer in your family, or if you're a golfer yourself and you're planning a trip to Georgia, you're going to learn a lot about the coast today, but you wouldn't go wrong with a stop at Sea Island Resort and a round of golf on one of their beautiful golf resorts. So that's sort of and then finish it with a big plate of seafood, because the seafood on the coast is fresh and it's wonderful, and it's a great taste of the unique brand of Southern hospitality that we have here in Georgia. But thank you again for tuning in to learn more about Georgia.
Hey, Mark, thanks so much for that overview. Yeah, that really helped put it in context. And interestingly, in the chat box, there's already at least 2 people who are already planning to go to Georgia next year. So great to see that there are already people thinking about it. So I'm sure you've probably just given them a few more ideas. But yeah, I mean, obviously, you say you've been really drawn to Georgia. You've been there, is it 5 years now? Are you going to stay?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yeah. What I love about Georgia is the diversity. We talked about it geographically speaking in the overview, from the coast to the mountains. Not every U.S. state has coastal mountains, plains, big city. Also, the diversity of temperature. I grew up in the Northeast of the United States, and I lived in Florida, as Lynn said, for most of my adult life. What I love about Georgia is we have 4 great seasons, and it makes for great seasonality. When you're choosing a visit to Georgia, you really can come any time of year and enjoy what's best about that season, whether it be spring, summer, winter, or fall.
Oh, sounds great. So, because we're in Britain, we're obsessed with talking about the weather. When I say we're in Britain, sorry, I know there are people watching tonight who aren't in Britain, but as a majority are. What's the weather like where you are at the moment? Because, of course, it's about 1:40 in the afternoon? And what's the weather like? Yeah.
65 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny in Atlanta, Georgia right now.
Oh, sunny. Yeah, we'd love some sunshine. We haven't got that much of that here at the moment. 65 degrees. I'm trying to think what that would be in centigrade. Probably about 17, 18, something like that. So very nice, lovely. That's to us be mild. In fact, that's almost a summer day. So no, that's brilliant.
18 degrees Celsius is what Google tells me.
Oh, wonderful temperature, wonderful. Okay, well, thank you so much, and we'll see you in a short while for the Q&A. Thanks, Mark.
Bye-bye.
Right, welcome, Stacia. And
good evening.
Evening. So now you can get us a bit more into this wonderful sounding coast. I'll leave you to it.
Well, thank you. Well, good evening, everybody. It's a treat to join you this evening, and I'm delighted and hope to share some details about the Georgia coast and why this low country tidewater region has great opportunities for those of you interested in learning about and experiencing more of the remarkable natural history that we have here. Certainly, there's a rich cultural history, as Mark described, and fabulous cuisine. But I'm going to focus on a taste of the natural history. So our coast is a watery world, as you can see in this slide. From the Savannah River flowing by Tybee Island out to the Atlantic Ocean, the river divides Georgia from South Carolina, and 160 kilometers to the south, where the St. Mary's River flows seaward by the south end of Cumberland Island and divides Georgia from Florida. And in between these 2 river systems, we have 14 major barrier islands off the coast. And 11 of these islands are in some form of conservation, whether it's state park systems, federal parks like our national park on Cumberland, or are privately held and are in protection. And each of the island has a unique story and a history which sets it apart from its neighbor. 10 of the 14 islands are only accessible by boat, which later I'll talk a little bit more about the lodge on Little St. Simon's Island, where I've been so fortunate to work alongside an exceptional team as a naturalist, educator, and guide since 2008. And let me back out to a bigger perspective to help illustrate why the Georgia coast experiences a tidal amplitude of 2 to 3 meters twice a day. Georgia's coast is the westernmost point on the eastern seaboard. So it's the furthest west than any other section of the whole Atlantic seaboard. And the center of the curved coastline receives the highest tidal amplitude. And this feature is referred to as the Georgia Bight, which extends from Cape Fear, North Carolina, all the way down to Cape Canaveral, Florida. And if we're standing on an ocean beach here in coastal Georgia, and the beach to the continental shelf offshore is 128 kilometers. So for every, the fall getting out to that continental shelf, for every meter you go in depth, you have to go out a kilometer. So for every kilometer you go offshore, you only get 3 feet or 1 meter of depth. And that's one of the reasons why you'll rarely find any big surf here in coastal Georgia. Now, this false color infrared photograph of the coast, which is thousands of digital photos all sewn together, distinctly shows the Georgia Barrier Islands. Isn't that gorgeous? And I want to highlight the 400,000 acres of tidal salt marsh, which lies in between the islands and the mainland. And along our Georgia coast, we have 35% of the East Coast marsh habitat, which is measured in biomass. So for example, if we were to take a square meter of tidal salt marsh grass and cut it over a period of a year and dry it and weigh it, it produces more biomass than any other habitat in North America. And these marshes filter the 7 different river basins that find their way to our coastline, creating estuaries where the fresh water meets the salt water that are rich in food for migratory shorebirds and fuels a nursery for juvenile marine critters such as shrimp and fish and blue crab that are the basis of a productive and commercial and recreational fishery. This region is also of hemispheric importance to the migration of hundreds of thousands of shorebirds traveling either from the Arctic nesting grounds south or from their southern reaches back. And many of these shorebirds are known to migrate from as far south as the southern tip of Chile to the Arctic. And these estuaries are the critical grocery stores, if you will, for these birds to fuel their journey. And just to give you an idea of the river systems which make their way to the Georgia coast, we have in the entire state, we have 14 different river basins, and 7 of them drain to our coastline here in Georgia, and the remainder drain down to the Gulf of Mexico. And as previously mentioned, I'll speak a bit about Little St. Simon's Island and its guest lodge, but do want to mention the Altamaha River and its estuary adjacent to the north end of Little St. Simon's and Big St. Simon's Island. The Altamaha River headwaters rise in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains in northwest Georgia and form the largest free-flowing river on the eastern coast of North America. And often this river is referred to as the Little Amazon of Georgia. The flow averages 400 cubic meters per second, and the silt-laden waters flowing from the Piedmont and the upper coastal plain of the state are an important aspect of the sand-sharing systems on the coast and act in accreting or growing the shorelines and sandbars seaward and near the estuary where the Altamaha River meets the Atlantic Ocean. And the seasonal variation of our tidal salt marsh, from the verdant greens of the spring and summer to the golden colors in the fall, are why our coastal region is referred to as the Golden Isles of Georgia. These tidal marshlands are also highly productive for shellfish like oysters and clams. And the oysters, here's a neat little tidbit. The oysters will filter up to 8 liters of water an hour, feeding on the marine algae and plankton suspended in the waters. And as I mentioned earlier, 10 of the 14 islands are only accessible by boat. And let me just go back. That's our boat launch arriving at Little St. Simon's Island. And our guest lodge on Little St. Simon's was built beginning in 1917 as a hunting lodge by the Berolsheimer family, who owned the Eagle Pencil Company and bought the island with the intent of making pencils from the southern red cedar trees. The family fell in love with the island, and after it was determined the trees were not good pencil trees, they created their family retreat and hunting lodge. And eventually it was opened to the public by the family as an eco lodge in 1979. We can accommodate as many as 32 overnight guests in our 16 guest room lodge, and our culinary team prepares 3 delectable meals a day for our guests, and we source as much local produce, seafood, and meat grown in this coastal region. A conservation easement was placed on Little St. Simon's Island's 11,000 acres in 2015, which ensures that the island will remain undeveloped except for the lodge compound. And our ecological management team oversees the habitat and wildlife management. And guest education programs are provided by full-time resident naturalists with expertise in birds, reptiles and amphibians, plant communities, and marine ecology, just to name a few. Bird watching is a popular activity for novices and experienced birders visiting the region and the island. Little St. Simon's Island has documented over 333 species of birds that either call this region their permanent home or are seasonal residents. And just to illustrate a few of my faves, my favorite songbird, the painted bunting, arrive as summer residents and nest on the island. And our lodge's ecological management team is supporting research and monitoring with the Cornell Lab of Ornithology and the Smithsonian to learn more of the species' wintering habitats, which are somewhat of a mystery right now. Little St. Simon's Island has habitats which support wading bird rookeries, which are active March through August. And throughout the island, we have towers and blinds to provide wildlife viewing opportunities. And another favorite of mine is the roseate spoonbill, which nests on Little St. Simon's Island and are such a delight to see on the wing. Other year-round activities that the lodge provides for our guests are guided tidal salt marsh kayaking, or which is such a wonderful thing to do no matter where you are on the coast, or walking or biking on Little St. Simon's 11 kilometers of ocean beaches with hopes of seeing a nesting sea turtle between May and August. That is such a treat to see. And I'll conclude with this perspective that Georgia's coast is a conservation legacy. And whether you're interested in the natural history or the rich cultural history, coastal Georgia has a star-studded adventure awaiting you. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacia. And it looks absolutely beautiful. And I must admit, I had a look at St. Simon's Island website, and I just thought that's my kind of place. I mean, it looks absolutely beautiful. And I hadn't appreciated that, you did have things like nesting turtles as well as the incredible array of bird life. So if you were to visit, I mean, it sounds like, would I be right in saying that for birds and for turtles, is summer the best time to visit?
Spring or summer. Sea turtles will begin nesting in generally middle of May. And the bird migrations in Eastern North America are really quite extraordinary. And if you were to come and visit in, let's say, the end of September or early October, you'd get to see an array of migrating warblers and shorebirds. And that's also when we still have nesting sea turtles emerging. So you get to see the babies coming out, making their way to the ocean.
Okay, so fall, autumn, it sounds like that's also be a terrific time. And what's it like there in winter? I mean, you say it's a year-round destination. So what would it be like if we came out now, if I got on a flight tomorrow? What would it be like?
If you came, I'm telling you, like this night sky picture, the skies at night are amazing. And of course, this time of the year, there are a variety of meteor showers to enjoy.
Yeah.
The cooler temperatures are really nice because what I call my bugometer are not even measurable. And the hiking is magnificent on the island, as well as bicycling. And fires in the lodge, and every Friday evening we have an oyster roast at the lodge for cocktail hour. So it's the winter months are just perfectly lovely as well. And if we have really cold weather coming in, it's only a frontal system that'll last a day or two, and then it moves out, and the temperatures become mild again, like Mark was describing.
Yeah. Okay, sounds great. And as you say, if it's cold anyway, that is better for activities.
Yes.
I see somebody's commented that the Explore Georgia website is currently giving a temporary unavailable messages, so we think we've crashed it. Like so many of us going on it, so that might be right, but I'm sure if we try again later, the website will be fine. And also, of course, on the Wanderlust website, we've got lots of Georgia articles, and St. Simon's Island has got its own website as well. I was on it earlier, and we will include that in our follow-up email as well, so people can look at that. Okay, well, thank you so much, Stacia.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's terrific, and we'll see you back for the Q&A.
Okay.
Right. So, I mean, that does definitely look my kind of place. So, Aaron, I presume you stayed there.
I did, actually. Yeah, I had a wonderful time there. Can you see me? I've turned my video on, but I've appeared to be a black square. Yeah, it was one of my highlights, actually. And what I'm going to do is talk through kind of my itinerary and some of my favorite pieces, and that was definitely one. And I was lucky to get Stacia as my guide, and she really does make it come alive. She's one of the best guides I've ever had. So highly recommended.
I do remember you saying, I remember you telling me, because of course at Wanderlust we're passionate about guides. We do awards for tour guides every year. Yeah. So yes, I'll have to remind you when that.
Well, can I nominate her? I'd like to just nominate her now. She's going to smash the competition.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, well I'll leave you to it then, Aaron, to take us through your recent journey.
Okay, thanks, Lynn. So I was in the Golden Isles in this October for just over a week. I was on an assignment there. Absolutely loved it. And I'm going to kind of talk you through my itinerary, some of my favorite bits, and offer some recommendations and highlights. But I was just going to start by saying I really didn't know anything about the Golden Isles, which is saying something because it's my job to know about American travel content. And this was kind of a bit of a secret destination for me, which I absolutely loved about it, and it kind of made the whole trip feel more exploratory and off the beaten track and adventurous, and I know Wanderlust readers love that too, so even just by that alone I recommend it. But I wanted to start with something that I wrote, and it actually opens the article that I wrote about my trip, and I think it kind of shows why I fell in love with this part of the world. So here we go. In the early autumn light, the salt marshes of Georgia's Golden Isles glow a glittering amber. I hike the shoreline as maritime forests, dripping in Spanish moss, arch their limbs above me. A bald eagle stands watch on its perch. Bright blue kingfishers skim the still pink of the river. This is why I love these islands, Willie Hazelhurst, my guide, says in melodic southern tones. You can get the beach anywhere, but this is something hard to put into words. Here's three that might just do. Pure Georgia gold. And we're going to see that sunset later on. That was actually taken from Cumberland Island, which is the end of my trip. But it was a highlight, so I started the piece with it. But you'll start your trip in SAVANNAH, which is a beautiful city. Of course, it's one of America's best preserved historic cities. It's an amazing place to just meander. It's a soft, soothing place. There's squares like this everywhere, you know, the beautiful live oaks arching over these bubbling fountains. But, you know, I guess the thing that sort of surprised me about it was it's not just about the history and the architecture and that kind of thing. It's also just a really, really fun place. I think I described it as head and history wrapped into a little cultural bundle of gastronomic boozy joy, which is my kind of place, by the way. And so you can soak up all that, you know, that history and the architecture and all that beautiful stuff, but you can also have some fun. Here in the bottom right hand corner is the Good Times Jazz Bar. Now, I'm not a jazz guy, but until you've eaten a Georgia peach cobbler listening to a smoking hot drum solo, you simply haven't lived. And there's lots of great bars on the river and other stuff to check out too. And then on the top right, this was a really powerful moment for me. This is Sister V. She's an African-American historian, and she does tours that kind of follow in the footprints of the slaves that were kind of marched from here, from the port into the plantations. And, you know, it was a really moving, kind of powerful experience to see that through her eyes. But then right at the end, she burst into this song, and it goes, "If I be a slave, I'd be buried in my grave and go home to my God and be free." And it's a song that was sung by her ancestors that she's trying to keep alive. And, you know, we saw so many different things about that history, but that one moment with her just singing that with her eyes closed and her fist clenched kind of said it all and said it more. And it's a really important part of this part of the world to find out about too. And that story continued. So my next stop was SAPELO Island, which is pretty close by. One of the nice things about doing a road trip here is it's a lot more trip than road. Everything's pretty close by. And this is a tiny island. It's 11 miles long and 4 miles wide. There's only 50 permanent residents here, but they have a really remarkable story. So this is the Hogs Hammock community, and it's this kind of collection of small homes and shacks, all kind of sheltered by these oak trees, and just kind of beautiful place. But the story here is that this community are the direct descendants of slaves that once worked the plantations here, and after the emancipation, they chose to stay and try and remain here to keep their culture alive. They're part of the Gullah Geechee culture, which has West African heritage roots, and they have their own dialect and beliefs and culture, and they wanted to stay here on the island to try and keep that alive, so that a lot of the houses and places and locations that people are still living in today are those kind of former slave quarters brought into the modern times, and these people are the great grandchildren of those people, which makes it a really, really fascinating place to visit. This is a picture of one of the plantations on the north side of the island that you can go to visit. But what I really loved about it, it's just one of those magical places where you get off onto the island and you just suddenly feel so relaxed. Your shoulders drop. Everyone is so friendly there. I got a tour around the island, and everyone knows everyone. People are coming over to shake your hand and say hi. There's this incredible historic story, but it's also just a really beautiful place to be. It's a very relaxing place, and so it's a great start to your trip. I would really recommend spending a couple of days here and just like soak into that Golden Isles pace. I wrote a line about it, which is that there's few things that the Golden Isles do fast except slow you down, and that's kind of why you come. And after SAPELO, I went to Little St. Simon's, which Stacia talked about, so I won't talk about this too much, but this is the lodge. The lodge is just beautiful. It's like all these cottages surrounded by a big lawn courtyard. There's really amazing fun things to do. I loved the forest here. It's maybe there's maritime forests all over these islands, but this is the most intact of all of them, and it just has that kind of energy of this old growth forest that's never been cut down. It's completely wild and beautiful, and you can hike through it, and it's just a wonderful place to explore and to see lots of wildlife. This is one of those hides that Stacia mentioned. We actually went, Stacia and I, to this place and had a picnic there, and it was just a beautiful moment. I'll read you another thing I wrote about the island. We walked through forests echoing with birdsong and thick with centuries-old magnolia trees in full bloom. Neon-colored rough green snakes, perfectly disguised as palm leaves, slither through the sand. Silver armadillos, like armored raccoons, potter through the brush. Blue dragonflies swarm above me in an explosion of color and fluttering wings. I see 2 baby alligators lounging on a swamp log no bigger than my hand, and Mama slinking through the water nearby. And that pond there is where Mama lived, and it was just a magical place. It's one of those places where you really feel the natural worlds come alive. You see all that kind of interconnection between it. And it's just got this amazing beach, which is all yours too. So this is like a 7-mile white sand beach, and no one's on it. Literally, you pretty much have it entirely to yourself, and there's not many places in the world that you can say that. So it's just a wonderful place to explore the forest and the wildlife, and also just on the beach. And this is another just great shot of the island. A lot of these shots are by Ben Galland, who's the photographer who was with me for a bunch of the trip, and you can see his handle on the bottom right there. And he's a local to the Golden Isles, and he has incredible pictures on his Instagram if you want to check out some more of that. And after Little St. Simon's was St. Simon's, the kind of bigger brother. It's one of the 2 islands that are road accessible, so it's more built up. There's more bars and restaurants and amenities. I didn't spend a long time here, so I'm not going to talk about it too much, but I will just say, and this applies to everywhere in the Golden Isles and the Georgia coast, the food is amazing. I had this dinner here at the Georgia Sea Grill, and this is catfish that was caught in that pond by the chef that day and then kind of cooked up that evening. And it's that kind of place. It's not what you would think of that traditional fried southern fare. It's fresh, it's beautiful seafood. You can see the shrimp boats out on the ocean and then literally eat their catch later on that day. It was an absolutely amazing place for food throughout, and I was totally spoiled with that. And then after St. Simon's, I went to JEKYLL Island, which is another one of those road accessible islands, so it's a little bit more built up. This is the JEKYLL Island Resort Club, which is a historic building and hotel that I stayed at. It's a really nice hotel. It was a treat to stay there. There's lots of options for accommodation though too. And you know, there's just some wonderful spots. So this is Driftwood Beach, and you can go on this beautiful 3-mile hike or so along this section of the beach where this petrified forest is kind of pokes out of the sand, and you're surrounded by all these trees just kind of poking out the sand. It's a wonderful place for photography, great place to come at sunrise or sunset. You know, kids are just playing around in the branches and stuff like that. It's a really unique kind of ecosystem. I've not seen anything like that. And just further down the beach, and Stacey mentioned that this happens a lot over the coast, but you have a nesting sea turtles. So if you come in the season, you know, June, July, you might see the mama sea turtle laying her eggs, and then if you come in sort of August, you can maybe even see some of those little hatchlings crawling to the sea if you're lucky. And there's loads of other wildlife experiences here that I didn't get a chance to do on this trip, but I would love to come back. There's whale watching. One of the guys I met there had actually seen a northern right Atlantic whale, which is one of the rarest whales in the world off the coast. There's dolphins. So it's really fun for that. But what I loved the most was bike riding. There's 25 miles of bike paths like this that kind of cut through the forest and across boardwalks. And it kind of loops around the whole island. So you can kind of just ride around, stopping off at little beach bars, having a cheeky margarita, maybe a snack, finding a little spot on a beach to have a snooze. It's a great way to spend a day, and you know, I love that part of it. And it was a nice combination because, you know, I started off the trip with SAPELO and Little St. Simon's, and you get that really immersive nature buzz, you know, that I absolutely love that. But then you kind of come to JEKYLL Island, and it's, you know, more sort of cocktails on the beach and bike rides and fun stuff like that. So it was a kind of combination to do both those things. But my last stop was Cumberland Island, which was a total highlight. Cumberland Island is the only one of the Golden Islands that's a national park. So you got to get like a 45-minute ferry to reach it. And it's got this history. This is one of the mansions that the Carnegies built at the sort of turn of the century. And, you know, obviously this is in ruins now, but it has these wild horses throughout, which is really special. It has this whole herds of wild horses, which you're pretty much guaranteed to see, you know, so wherever you're going, you'll just kind of see them in the undergrowth or running along the beach. And it's really beautiful to see that. But what I really recommend doing here is to get some camping in. It's a beautiful place to camp. This is the beach, so you kind of get off on the other side of the island, and then they have all these lovely hiking trails through the forest. The campsite, you can't tell here, but it's actually in that forest, and this is the kind of southern campsite of the island, and you're camping like forests like this. I mean, it's like stunning forests, you know, in the shade, but with all this beautiful dappled light. And when you stay in the southern campsite, you can kind of walk over to the beach, really nice and fun, spend a night there. but then go up to the northern part of the island, which is what I did. And this is the campsite that I stayed at. And it was one of the most beautiful campsites I've ever been in. It was just, we were literally completely on our own. And we were right on the marsh. And I saw the most amazing sunset of my life. Here's some photographs I took of it. And the colors were just unbelievable. And it was just one of those nights where I just couldn't believe my eyes. And then to get even better, we were sharing it with these guys, manatees. I'd always wanted to see manatees in the wild, and they were right next to our campsite, just sort of rolling around, frolicking in the water as the sun set, and these colors came out. So I kind of started with something that I wrote to start the piece, and I'll finish with something else that I wrote just to kind of wrap things up and give you a sense of why I fell in love with this part of the world. So I wrote, later that afternoon, we set up camp on a sandy floor beside the river's edge, surrounded by the cautious foraging of wild horses and the splashing of manatees nearby. We watch a full moon rise pink over the ocean dunes and a sunset over the salt marsh in a startling colour like I have never seen in nature before. But it is a colour I recognise now, a colour that glitters in low sun, a colour she wonder from the Tiqua Indians to the SAPELO slaves to now. It seeps into your skin like the rising tide. It is 3 simple words. It is pure Georgia gold. Thank you. Thanks for letting me share that trip.
Oh, thank you. Gosh, I think we all got transported away there with you, and beautiful words.
Thank you, Lynn.
Some beautiful photographs too. Yeah, absolutely stunning. So, and I mean, oh gosh, as well, and manatees, horses, northern right whales, I mean, I'm there.
Doesn't get much better than that. Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic. Cool. Aaron, you travel so much in the States, you live in the States, you travel around the States so much. So I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but what do you think makes Georgia so distinct? I mean, you obviously really fell for it, the passion has come through, but what to you makes it distinct over other parts of the state?
Well, I'd never really seen an ecosystem like that, and I was kind of constantly wandering around through the forest, and it never, I never got used to it in the sort of 8 or 9 days I was there. These like maritime forests and these live oaks with the Spanish moss just dripping down like this, huge trees in places, and you saw that photo on Cumberland Island as well, just like this web of branches and dappled light. I mean, it was one of the most beautiful ecosystems I've ever seen, and I'd never really experienced anything like that. So I think, and also like just the deserted beaches. There's not many places that you can go in the world and have like 7 or 8 miles of white sand, and like it's 2 and then like half a mile down there's like another couple, and that's it. There's no sort of getting up early to throw your beach towel on the deck chair. It's all yours, and so I felt like that space too was really, really special.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like a place to really, I don't know, rejuvenate, refresh, all those sort of words that are very in at the moment, that we all want to do. And I'm much more normally into fauna than flora, but the photographs of the forest and the old growth forest and the foliage and then everything, it just looked extraordinary.
Yeah, that rejuvenation is a good word for that, I reckon. I feel like every type of ecosystem kind of gives you a different buzz in a way, and this was definitely that sense of just being surrounded by that lushness and that life. Did kind of rejuvenate you. It made you feel connected to all that in a really beautiful way.
Yeah. Oh, incredible. Okay, well, let's invite back our stellar panel. So if I could invite everybody back to join us. Thank you, Stacia, Mark, Kath. And let's see, we haven't got many questions yet. So if anybody wants to ask a question, I think because everybody was transported by these words and images, but if you have got a question, do ask. So, Kath, let's tackle some practicalities for somebody who wants to visit from the UK. How would we do it?
Okay, well, we specialise in tailor-made holidays. So really, whatever, any of the ideas that anybody's heard tonight, we can really package something together for whatever you want to do. But essentially, as Mark said at the beginning, that Atlanta is Georgia's major hub. So you'd fly from London into Atlanta directly on Virgin or Delta or British Airways. And from there, either rent a car and tour the state that way, or you could take an internal flight to Savannah and just focus on the coast. So there are lots of different options of how to get to Georgia and then how to travel around. There's some the organised tours that you can take. So really something for everybody.
Yeah. Because, Aaron, were you doing a self-drive or?
Yeah, but, like I said, there's not that much driving, which is kind of nice. It's useful to have a car because it's really hard to get between the different ports, ferry ports and stuff. But for most of the time, SAPELO, you're not in a car. You just kind of get the ferry over and you're there. The Cumberland's the same, no cars allowed really on. So for the most part, you're just, maybe driving an hour and a half between places, and then you're just kind of in the place, immersed in it. So yeah, more trip than road, which is my kind of road trip.
Oh, definitely. So Mark, can you give us an idea of distances, and not in miles or kilometres, but rather in hours? Yeah.
I've got a little of that Georgia gold kind of cutting across my screen here as the sun is starting to
we're all very jealous. Those of us in the UK and Europe, we're so jealous. We're all sitting here.
Aaron wasn't lying. Aaron wasn't lying. There really is gold in that sunset. So if we think about Atlanta as the starting point based on the flights. The North Georgia mountains that I showed on the map earlier on are an hour north of our north drive time from Atlanta. And then the coast that we showed, starting in Savannah, would be 3 hours southeast of Atlanta. And then from Savannah down to Cumberland Island and the Golden Isles that Aaron spoke about an hour's drive time if you were to drive straight, but you don't want to do that, as Aaron pointed out. You want to kind of take your time and go. But the Georgia coast is very compact, very, very close. Those islands are very close to one another. But if you were to start in Savannah and drive down to the bottom, a little over 1 hour drive time.
Yeah. And somebody has asked, is it possible to do it by public transport?
Public transport is probably not the best way to go here in the South. Certainly, public transport, if for your time in Atlanta or in Savannah, but to hit multiple sites and to go from one location to the other, you want to have transportation set up. As Kath mentioned, you certainly can take an internal flight from Atlanta to Savannah, and the Savannah Hilton Head Airport has actually grown quite a bit and is rated among the best smaller regional airports here in the United States.
Okay, perfect. So, Kath, you're going to add to that anyway.
I would just add that there are organised group tours that you can do parts of the coast, but certainly not perhaps some of the more remote islands, but you could do JEKYLL and Savannah as part of an organised group tour. So that is also another option.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Kath, what would you suggest as an itinerary? What do you typically suggest, and regards to time as well, number of days?
Georgia's got so much to offer, and we didn't really highlight too much of the other parts of the state. But there's obviously the mountains. There's Atlanta. There's the Okefenokee area. So to do a loop, or kind of not quite a loop, but to fly into Atlanta and then perhaps head up to the mountains and then come back down sort of through Okefenokee and then across to the coast. That makes a really nice itinerary, and we've got we call it Georgia's Family Adventure on our website, but actually you don't need to take your family with you. It's equally as appealing if you're on your own or just with a couple or with some friends.
Good. I was going to say, I don't want to be on that 7-mile deserted beach with lots of other people. Thank you very much. What's the point of going?
It would be great with a family, though. I went by myself on this assignment, but I was thinking the whole time, oh God, I'd love to take my kids back here just to kind of learn about that ecosystem and the wildlife and just kind of go crazy on the beach without, me worrying of them driving everyone else crazy too.
Yeah.
I promise you this, the Georgia tourism industry will welcome you like family.
Well
like what you did there.
Well said. Yeah, very good. But I do get a feeling, I mean, we talk about Southern hospitality. So, Aaron, is that something that you came across?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I got to meet lots of local people and as I went and, everywhere I went, I got to meet different folks. And, I absolutely did feel that. And I always feel that when I go to the South. And, for me, SAPELO particularly was just like one of those places where I just everywhere I went, people were shaking my hand and come back to my house. I have to show you this picture of, my grandma who's working this place. Or, I went into the local store and it's like the kind of local store that's open for about, 2 minutes randomly every other day because it's that small an island. But I got chatting with the local guy and then found out about all this sort of conservation projects he's doing and cultural projects and took me out to show some of that. And so, yeah, it's definitely that kind of place and a big highlight of it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Lovely. Oh, we need a bit of that at the moment, don't we? So, Stacia, as our wildlife expert, hate to ask this question. Is there a mosquito season to avoid?
Yes. And the mosquitoes are a function of when we have really big tides and lots of rain. So we can go all summer with no mosquitoes. It's randomly correlated to tidal amplitude as well as rainfall events. So we're having a dry year, it can be fabulous.
Yeah. Okay.
But remember, this is a part of the world where you're either at the table or you're on the table. and so there's a lot of wildlife that depends on the insects for their food too.
Well, of course, we need to treasure our insects. Yeah. Maybe not mosquitoes necessarily, but bugs as a whole we do, yes. And Aaron mentioned that he saw a northern right whale, your friend did. Do you see whales along the coast?
Yes, and we see, it's so shallow offshore that you have to go offshore. And as you know, the North Atlantic right whale is the most critically endangered species of whale in the world. And so there are very strict guidelines on approaching them. But people certainly offshore fishing see them this time of the year because the mothers come down to these quiet, shallow coastal region to have their babies in the wintertime.
Oh, wow.
We also see bottlenose dolphin in terms of other marine mammals, yeah. And of course, as Aaron pointed out, manatees. And we also occasionally see humpback whales.
Oh, incredible. So are the boat trips out that people can take?
Not right now, no, because again, they're so critically endangered that our State Department of Natural Resources is very hesitant to issue any type of permitting for that. But it's sort of a random thing. And to actually stand on the shore and say, whale ashore, it's not something you can really see because it's so shallow. Miles offshore to see them.
That's incredible. We've got a question from Tina saying, can you see loggerheads on Wolf Island?
On Wolf, yes, they do nest there, but it's hard to get to Wolf Island as it's a national wildlife sanctuary. And so I'd say that any of the other Georgia islands are probably more easily easy to access and see sea turtles.
Okay, so not necessarily wolf, or you can, but do try some others. There's a question from Pamela, which I might be able to answer, which is asking about going to the USA, getting a visa because she's been to Iran. Now, Pamela, I've been through this. I think I've been to most of the places on the naughty list. Iran, Iraq, Sudan, etc. And what I had to do was go to the embassy in London and be interviewed. it's a bit scary at the time. It's a bit like Homeland, but they're very nice afterwards. And I've got a 10-year visa, which makes life very easy. So rather than an ESTA, I've got a 10-year visa now that I can get in and out of the States on. And so do look up the embassy website, and I'm sure that information still applies. It also depends, of course, when you went. But you basically make an appointment, and then you can have a 10-year visa and go to the States as many times as you want. I don't know if anybody's got anything to add to that. No. Okay.
I mean, exactly it.
Yeah, I'm sure, Kath, you must get asked visa questions. Yeah. Do you find it something that people are a bit concerned about?
People do, I think that with any bureaucracy, people just are naturally nervous, but there's not really any need to be nervous. Not everybody can travel on an ESTA, and making an appointment at the embassy and getting a visa is actually much more straightforward than it sounds.
It is incredibly straightforward. It's actually fascinating to go to the embassy.
How did you get to go to the embassy? Exactly.
You get to go to the embassy. It's incredible. And you can't take your phone in. Yeah, you've got to leave your phone behind or whatever. So it's just worth it for that. It'll give you something to tell all your friends about. Absolutely. So, Mark, I think a lot of people are fascinated by SAVANNAH, and we've only briefly touched it on today. And I don't know if you or indeed Aaron have got any quick tips for SAVANNAH, and how long should we spend there? Shall we just ask you, Mark, first?
Yeah, I welcome Aaron's input as well, but you want at least a couple of days in SAVANNAH. There's a lot to discover there. Personally, what I have found that they've done so well is protected the culture, the history, the heritage, but at the same time developed, particularly among River Street. River Street has recently been expanded. The picture that I showed in my overview was of a new JW Marriott resort, which sits right on the river, has extended the riverfront. So you have all of the modern amenities and luxury that travelers look for today, with not only accommodations, but food and entertainment. But it didn't replace any of the history, the cobblestones, the beautiful squares that Aaron described and showed pictures of. So you have it now, you have it both, but you need double the amount of time to see it all now.
Yeah. Aaron, anything you'd add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I basically, and this goes for SAVANNAH and everywhere else really, is just leave yourself enough time, right? Like, don't rush through it. It's, it is a place to kind of mosey through at a relaxed pace. That's part of the experience, I think. For SAVANNAH, I would definitely a couple of full days, and I totally concur with that experience. You could do a day like just soaking up the history and the culture and the architecture and the art, and then another day just kind of having fun, going out to see a show, having a really nice dinner. The River Street I really enjoyed too, just getting down on the river and seeing that, and stopping off at a couple of bars and restaurants along the way. So yeah, a couple of days at least, I'd say.
Now, this all sounds so enticing. I mean, I think that combination to me of the islands and coastline, SAVANNAH, and if there's time, going up to the mountains as well. I mean, I just think it's probably every Wanderlust reader's dream combination. Sounds brilliant. Okay, now we are running out of time. So what I'm going to do is ask our great speakers to come up with one top recommendation each for a place or an experience or something. While they're thinking of that, just a quick plug for Wanderlust gift subscriptions, of course, as Christmas gifts. So if you haven't bought Christmas gifts for friends who are into travel, or indeed if you're not a member of the Wanderlust Club yet, then do take out a Wanderlust Christmas gift subscription. We've got a great offer on where you get a free Simon Reeve book if you buy a Christmas gift subscription. So have a look on the website, and you will see all the details there. As I say, it's a year's membership. You get lots of offers, exclusive events, and so on, as well as all the issues of the magazine. So it's a great deal, and as well as a Simon Reeves book, step by step. So really enticing. Right, so coming back to our great panel. Okay, I know this is always really, really, really difficult to narrow things down to one. So I'm going to go from looking at my screen. I'm going from right to left. So I'm going to start with you, Stacia. What would you recommend? What would be the one thing everybody watching should do?
Well, those of y'all that are coming to coastal Georgia certainly want to experience that magic hour. The light is so luscious and gorgeous. So my recommendation is to pack a picnic dinner and take yourself to whatever beach you might be near, and watch from the crepuscular light to the star-filled sky and enjoy a lovely dinner on the beach. Anytime of the year.
Yeah, that sounds dreamy. And of course, I'm not even into sunset, but we've had some incredible sunset images this evening. I mean, it just looks, yeah, fantastic. Okay, so a picnic dinner on the beach. Yeah, amazing. That sounds so good. Right, Kath, what would yours be?
Well, mine's the other end of the day. So if you're on a coastal sort of island hopping trip, do your dinner on one island, and then the next morning wake up at the beach on another island, and just get up early and watch the sunrise. You can look out across the Atlantic. You cannot see anything else. There's just you, the beach, and the sea, and that's it. And it's fantastic. Or if you're at Driftwood Beach, then some driftwood as well, but not a lot else. So yeah, that would be me.
Oh, that sounds magical as well. Yeah, love sunrise when the world is waking up and days full of promise. It's such a special time, isn't it? And of course, a great time to see wildlife and nature as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Right, Mark, what would your recommendation be?
Well, we talked about the coast. We talked about Atlanta. I'm going to take you inland to yet another unspoiled and undiscovered piece of Georgia, and that's a little town in the middle of Georgia called Lake Oconee, or an area called Lake Oconee. It sits halfway between Atlanta and Augusta, Georgia, about an hour east of Atlanta, about 3 hours from the coast. And Lake Oconee is the second largest lake in Georgia. It's surrounded by tall Georgia pines. There's a beautiful Ritz-Carlton lodge that sits on the lake that I'm sure Kath and her team could help book you into. It's a really lovely area, and fell in love with it so much after 25 years of a Floridian. It made me a Georgian by choice, and we made Georgia our home there.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. I hope nobody from Florida is watching this tonight, but yeah.
They're welcome to come visit as well.
That does sound magical. Somewhere else to add to the list. Thank you for that, Mark. Okay, Aaron, last but not least, what would you suggest?
So I'm going to be a bit cheeky and do more than one tip, but make them really quick for all the different stops on my itinerary. But just real quick to Stacia's point, one night on Cumberland Island, we actually did exactly what you said and watched this full moon just rise up from the ocean and on this pink sky. It was absolutely magical. So tips: Savannah, the best restaurant in Savannah is the Grey, but you need to book miles in advance. So try and book like 6 months in advance. If you miss your booking, you can occasionally get a seat at the bar. But make sure you eat there. SAPELO, I stayed in this place called the Birdhouse Cottage. I think we're going to put all this in the email as well. So,
Yeah.
Birdhouse Cottage is where I'd recommend. Beautiful porch looking out over the marsh. Again, watching the sunset and the birds at the end of the day. Stunning place. Little St. Simon's, make sure you get Stacia. She's an incredible guide. Makes the whole place come alive in a really, really special way. And can spot just about any bird from a mile away. She's just constantly spotting birds out of the sky. She's got an incredible eye. And then last but not least, with Cumberland Island, rent a bike, take that on the ferry with you so that you can camp on the south and then ride your bike 10 miles up to the north and then camp in the north as well.
Brilliant. That sounds so good. And I was about to start Googling, and then I realised that's very rude, really, isn't it? Yes, I'll wait for all of that to be in our newsletter that we will send out to everybody who registered for tonight. Some great ideas there, and I know I certainly am adding, coastal Georgia to my bucket list. I definitely want to visit. It sounds fantastic, and I'm sure so many other readers feel the same way. So thank you to our great speakers. That was wonderful. And yes, we'll put the recording and we'll put some of those questions and answers and all those recommendations and tips into the newsletter that'll come out in the next few days. So thank you all. And thank you, great team. And good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night.